Overwatch Season 11 is here. Let's take a look at the patch notes. I've looked at them already, and they are yet another round of patches. We will go into all of that, but I will quickly get through this other stuff. So super ultra mega watch is here. Super mega ultra watch rather is here. The community crafted mode is also here. I have not been able to try anything yet. I'm excited to. Hero mastery updates, Soldier and Kiriko are here. Cool. Runasapi is here. I will probably have a larger video breaking down Runasapi later. So be on the lookout for that. But just know that Runasapi is here as well. Great to see. Challenge updates, apparently. Weekly challenge catch up. So all past incomplete weekly challenges can be completed at any time in a given season. When the weekly reset occurs on Tuesday, incomplete weekly challenges gain an additional copy of that challenge when a weekly challenge is completed. If that challenge has copies remaining, the challenge will refresh and be completed again. Awesome. Cool. I like just more ways to make it easier to get your XP and your challenges. Always good. Always good. Weekly milestones are challenges progressed by completing other weekly challenges. Each week, a new weekly milestone is unlocked. All past weekly milestones can be completed at any time in any given season. So I guess this is new. Weekly milestones progress one at a time. All past weekly milestones must be completed to progress a weekly milestone. Okay, we'll take a look at that later. Competitive play updates. Rank percentage is now displayed on the competitive progress page, allowing you to check your exact percentage without playing another match. Awesome. I can't believe this took so long, but it's good that it's here. Rename the modifiers win streak and loss streak to win trend and loss trend to more accurately convey that these modifiers are calculated by weighing the most recent games more heavily, but that they are not true streaks. So I think the idea, it's like, in your past 20 games, if you've won 19 out of 20 of them, but you went like 9, 1, and 10, that would be a win trend because you are 95% positive. I think that's kind of what they're going for. Because I got win streak one time, but I won 5 games in a row and then like immediately lost it. So I must have been like right on the threshold of like how many of the last games had gone. So yeah, I guess that makes a little more sense. I still think this is confusing. Added more parameters for how the matchmaker handles Y groups so that you can ensure better queue times. Basically, Y groups are going to be a little... they're prioritizing queue times a little more. A button that allows you to view the match's final scoreboard has been added to each page during the end of game flow. That's cool. I think that's cool. I think. We'll see how that actually turns out. Okay, actual balance changes. Hero updates. General, knockdown time when two charging abilities collide reduced from 2 to 1.7 seconds. And they say about this, the stun time reduction applies to the knockdown that happens when two charging abilities collide and result in a tie. Reinhardt, Doomfist, Brig, Mauga, Bob. The counterplay and interaction of the two charging abilities impacting each other is great, but it took both players out of the fight a little too long. Okay, so that's fine. I don't think this is going to be that much, but... that is really annoying to be on the ground for a whole 2 seconds, so sure. Okay, D.Va. Developer comments. These changes will improve D.Va's effectiveness against smaller targets as she becomes less effective against armor targets in the previous patch. So, weapon spread has been reduced from 3.75 to 3.375, and boosters impact damage increased from 15 to 25. So, basically, D.Va's spread is going to be much tighter, which will allow her to do damage more consistently, specifically against smaller targets. So she's still going to be just as effective against tanks, but she's going to, on average, be more effective against squishies. And basically, they don't want D.Va to be a tank buster, and she isn't right now. So they're pushing more of her power towards being more effective against backline, against other people, right? So that she's not necessarily dealing with the other tank all game. She's trying to deny value from the supports in the DPS. That also boosts her damage increase from 15 to 25, give her a little bit more burst. Yeah, good. I like these D.Va changes. I think D.Va is a sleeper pick. I don't think she is like super good, or she wasn't super good, but she had a couple of maps that she was still, I think, particularly strong on, and she did need a little help. Now, it's going to be the same with Diva. She's going to be good on the map, so she's good on, and probably not on anything else. She's not very playable in just any situation. But this will at least increase her effectiveness and maybe make her a more viable pick some places other, instead of like a Winston or something. Doubt it, but it gives her a little more. Junker Queen. The tank knockback resistance passive was affecting Junker Queen's pull more than intended. The distance can be affected by their movement, but tanks are now pulled in about 5 to 6 meters instead of only 3 meters or so. I think this is a little misguided because knifing tanks is not really what Queen wants to even be looking for in the first place. Like, yes, it was a little egregious how little tanks even were affected by Jagged Blade. I think because of just how it interacts with like the friction of the ground, because it doesn't like push up, it just pulls. So that probably was exacerbating the problem. But yeah, I don't think this really does anything for Queen. I think really what you want to look for are knives on what's it called? On squishies. Now, against certain dive tanks, yes, it'll be better, but I still don't think that's exactly where all the real power in Jagged Blade was. We'll have to see. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we go into, like, if we go into a Winston meta, which we aren't going to, but maybe she's much more effective about counterplaying Winston after the armor changes, because you do have to remember that Queen was hurt a little bit by the armor changes because she has a shotgun. Also, Rampage startup time reduced from 0.75 to 5.5 seconds. Yikes. Careful with this one. Rampage is already an ult that can turn fights like a lot, like insanely well. Now she can cast it earlier, so she can on reaction do it better and also not get it canceled. I think this is a little much. I don't understand why. They didn't even say like why about this change in particular. I'm not gonna say like it's an awful change, but like I don't really agree. Like I feel like this was unnecessary. But it's fine. I love Junker Queen, so yeah, sure, I'll take it. Orisa. Orisa's survivability was reduced more than necessary in her last round of changes, so we're partially reverting the cooldown increase to Javelin Spin. I wanted them to just remove the slow on Fortify, and they could have kept everything else the same. Yes, her survivability would have been the same, but like her uptime is really bad right now. I think that's why Orisa is really, really rough, because her uptime in general right now is really bad. Javelin's spin being back a second faster will help a little bit, but I don't know. I think Ori is still going to be probably trash tier, even with this. It's Javelin spin is not the cooldown that's really important for her. So, Roadhog. Roadhog's already powerful survivability increased significantly with the headshot damage reduction from the tank world passive, so these changes are to help bring that back in line. Base health reduced from 650 to 600. This doesn't really do anything, does it? Like, for real? I don't understand. Unless I'm crazy, and I'm pretty sure Breather is a flat rate instead of like scaling off of his health. But this doesn't do much. I mean, So I whatever. Take a breather, getting its damage reduction. This should go down to like 25%, right? Like, take a breather does not need to have this much damage reduction, especially now that Hog headshot is, less viable. Like, he's just going to take less damage overall. I don't think we need nearly as much damage reduction. 40, I think it's still a lot. I think it's still too much. Hog will still be good. Again, I keep saying this. Hog ignores the tank passive. Hog is the only person in this game that gets to ignore the tank knockback passive and just pull anybody he wants completely out of position every 8 seconds. There is something wrong with Roadhog. It is not, it's not a fair ability, basically. Nothing about Roadhog feels good to fight into. So there's a lot of problems with him. Cassidy, there's a lot here. I'm not going to read all of these, but just know that what's it called? I'll read the Deadeye one, but like flashbang, it's like magnetic grenade is gone. It's going to be flashbang that does a hinder basically. So old flash, it just very close, has the area of effect, and then it hinders, right, for like 1.2 seconds is what they say. And we'll talk about some of the other things about it. And then Deadeye, they say, the Deadeye ultimate is getting an adjustment to increase its flexibility towards the end of its duration, enabling it to get value outside of buying time for Cass or his allies, although it may be riskier to hold it for a long time as the damage reduction will fade away along with the movement speed penalty. Okay, so Peacekeeper, secondary fire, fan the hammer damage reduced. I think this is to alleviate some pressure with, fan the hammer, roll, fan the hammer, fan the hammer, flash, roll, fan the hammer, right? Because, of the movement reduction, it's going to be really bad against tanks. So this is going to decrease the DPS. I think not that significantly, but it does help. What I think is a really big change here is combat roll damage reduction reduced from 75 to 50. Part of what has made Cass so good is his survivability. And combat roll having a 75% damage reduction meant that he could roll basically anything and survive it, but he could also go take angles, and if anybody tried to burst him down or catch him on the angle, he just rolls while they do it, gets all the damage reduction, and he's back to his team completely safe. And since he barely took any health down, then he can get right back into the fight, right? And if he was able to shoot somebody in the process, like the flanker or whoever contested him, he gets the space for free because he gets to come back way quicker. This is significant, I think, down to 50%. I think you're still going to be able to roll pulse bombs and all that shit. But I do think like this is a hit to his sustainability. Okay, flashbang. The magnetic grenade ability is now flashbang. It hinders enemies instead of stunning them for 1.2 seconds. Movement speed reduction increased from 30% to 50%. Now, I'm not sure what the actual rundown is, but I think that this version lasts less amount of time than when you're stuck with the grenade. But, I think the movement speed reduction was increased because it's at such a close distance, right? Like, you have to be, like, really, really close to Cass to get hit by this. So it's giving him more reward for hitting a harder ability, right? Hinder now prevents crouching movement. I think this is big because if you got hindered by it, you could just, like, crouch spam and see if you can, like, dodge the shot before the hinder goes away. So this is, like, it's basically trying to say, like, guaranteeing him to get his damage in before the hinder is gone. 45 explosive damage, so you can't just flashbang one shot somebody. I think you can do this on Tracer though. Yeah, you should be able to do it on Tracer. But that's standard. That's classic, right? That's old Overwatch anyways. 12-second cooldown. I actually don't know what mag grenade has been on, but I feel like 12 seconds is a lot. So they're scared. They are scared about flashbang, I think. We're going to probably see some adjustments with this. But overall, these changes, in my head, Cass is going to be much weaker. Maybe that won't end up being true. Maybe he'll just be like he'll still be like pretty playable, but like not as good. But to me, this says that Cass is probably not going to be in the meta as consistently. Deadeye, though, movement speed penalty now scales down over time from 70 to 35%. So when you start Deadeye, you will be moving very, very slow. You will be at 30% of what your movement speed would be regularly, right? As you hold Deadeye, you will actually be increasing your speed up to about 65% of what your actual movement speed is. So he gets this big initial scary, like, what's it called? Like, you're scared of Cass, that as he holds the ultimate, he can go try and, like, find people or walk out of harm's way and not have to use roll. Like, there's a lot that you can do with this. You can get aggressive. Also, the damage reduction now scales down. So at the beginning of the ult, he has 40%. By the end of it, he has 0 damage reduction. So you can get risky with it, or you can use it to be safe. In my opinion, I think damage reduction on Deadeye was kind of a non-factor because he's out there standing out in the open anyways. And he's just super easy to hit and also super easy to avoid. So it didn't really matter in my opinion. You could get him down pretty fast. So the damage reduction scaling down, I honestly think this is kind of a non-nerf. Really, the movement speed. This is big. Like this could open up a lot of opportunities for Deadeye. So we'll have to see. But be on the lookout for this. I think this is just a net buff overall for Deadeye. So a lot of changes to Cass. Cass is probably going to be playing a lot differently than he has been. So we'll see how that goes. He's probably going to be falling back into that protector more a little more. May's damage output over time is intended to be on the low end for a damage hero, as she offers strong utility and survivability through her ability kit. But we would like to make the secondary fire icicle more rewarding by increasing the damage and slightly more difficult to land consistently. So, I actually didn't realize this was going down. I thought this was going up. I didn't read it properly. So, her icicle is getting harder to hit, but it will give you increased reward. That's weird. I don't think this is going to help Mei at all. In fact, it's going to make her harder to play at lower ranks, of course, but it's like, I think the idea here is now you can 2-tap again, right? No, you could always 2-tap, 150, 150. So now can you, so 85, it would be 170, and then 85, which is not 250, is it? No, it is. 170 plus 85. Yeah, that's 250. Okay. I see the breakpoints now, right? So now you can headshot, body shot, and kill, but it's harder, right? That's the idea. Okay, I see it. I see the vision. We'll have to see. It basically just gives Mei a bit of her range pressure back. But again, it makes her a little harder. And honestly, it's interesting to see them take one character and make their skill ceiling go up, and take another character who we'll get to and make their skill ceiling go down. So, Reaper here, with the previous patch change to how armor reduces damage, shotgun weapons like heroes like Reaper lost in value since much of their gameplay revolved around pressuring large tank heroes. To help shift Reaper towards being more effective against smaller targets, we're tightening the weapon spread of Hellfire of shotguns and reducing the amount of time enemies have to react to Shadow Step Teleport. Okay, so this is like the D.Va changes, right? Weapon spread reduced, encourage shooting squishies more, because he's not as effective against tanks. Reaper sucks, I hate Reaper. But hopefully this actually does what they want it to do, and not just Reaper is just better at what he has been doing against tanks. He can just do it at a little bit of a safer distance. Hopefully this actually allows him to take more duels. Shadow Step getting buffed, I mean, like, he needed it, that's for sure. Shadow Step, there's a possibility Shadow Step used to be the worst ability, or it is the worst ability in the game, in my opinion. So he definitely needed something here. Okay, Sojourn. This change is reducing the burst damage potential of the secondary fire railgun shot to both lessen frustration from playing against that burst damage and to shift power into her sustained primary fire damage. This should smooth out the feast or famine nature of Sojourn consistently hitting the secondary fire shots. Sojourn is not feast or famine. On paper, she is. In practice, she isn't. It is very, very easy to charge rail and keep it charged and hit good shots, right? Part of the skill of Sojourn is trying to figure out when you should go for harder headshots and when you should aim for the body instead, right? So you can always get good damage. It's just you have to be like playing the field about like, when do I do this? When do I do when do I go for guaranteed damage? When do I have to make a call, make a skillful play and try and hit a headshot instead, right? That's part of the skill of Sojourn. And it should feel like Sojourn has levels to her, right? That you have a big burst option once you have rail, right? And you aren't as good before you get rail. Now, the problem I think with Sojourn is that she always has rail too often, right? I would have just made it so that she charged way less, specifically off tanks, I would say. But instead, what they have done is that they've scaled down the secondary fire, the rail shot, from 30 to 130, which meant, like, if you had one charge of damage, you'd be doing 30. If you had 100, you'd do 130. Now, if you have one, you're doing 1. If you have 100, you're doing 100. Okay? So, this significantly hurts Sojourn's damage because remember she has a 1.5 headshot multiplier. So she does 150 to the head now. 150 to the head. Which I think is a little ridiculously low. Yeah, I'm not really a fan. Also, the secondary fire can now pierce enemy players, I guess. It's not really that big of a deal. I thought that was just a fun thing that Overclock could do. I kind of don't like that, honestly. I feel like it should just be an Overclock thing, because that's a really, like, really rare thing to happen anyways, and it's really funny when it does. I feel like it shouldn't be able to happen that often, because there's going to be some times where people are together, and I don't know. Anyways, primary fire shots per second increased from 14 to 16. Okay, basically they want you just to be finding much more. Basically, it brings her value floor up. So she's at base getting more value, which is crazy to me. And brings her value ceiling down, which is crazy to me, because this character already had a very high value floor, even if you weren't very good at her. I think you could have gotten so much, you get so much damage pressure out of left click, you get so much out of right click, even if you can't hit headshots, it still does a good amount of burst damage to the body from a very long range. I don't know, man. I do think, again, Soj needed to have her one shot less often. But now, or like one shot, right? Like air quotes one shot. But now, like, I don't know. I'm not really a fan of this. I think yeah, honestly, like, if they just wanted to bring her damage down a little bit, not this much, and then just, like, keep the primary fire exactly what it was, so she, because now, like, she's shooting more primary fire shots more often, which means that she can get rail more easily and do more damage, right? But if they just removed that and brought her damage down a little bit, not this much again, maybe that would do the same thing. Maybe her kill threat would be less oppressive and less often. And again, I think they should just make it so that she doesn't, her rail just takes more to charge, right? Like, I think it should just take more more shots to charge her rail, or something like that. Now, if we are going to be stuck with these changes, I think her headshot multiplier not go back to 2, maybe 1.75, right? Maybe it could go back to 2, honestly. Maybe. I don't know, like, what was it doing? 130? Well, if it went back to 2, it would be too much. 1.75, right? Then we will have scaled her down. Her damage would be right in that area, and then, sure, you can raise the value ceiling, whatever. But I don't want the skill ceiling to go down, right? The value floor can go up. I don't care. It's fine. But the skill ceiling should not go down, basically. I'm going to shout out my friend Koob, just because he kind of pointed this out. Because when I initially read this, I thought it wasn't that bad, but the more that we talked about it and went over it, the less I like this change. And then to compensate, Overclock. And this is actually so weird to me, because I think Overclock is like one of the best, if not the best ultimate in the game. And they just buffed it up to compensate, so it's like still as usable and does similar DPS, which I feel like is a little ridiculous if this is what they were going for. But whatever. Sojourn hasn't been that good. She's been kind of outclassed by Cassidy and other DPS, like in certain situations, Tracer, Venture, and Pharah, and other things like that, and Ashe even against some of these brawl comps. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Symmetra. To help solidify Symmetra as a close range threat, we're increasing her health to better survive in that range, along with how quickly her primary fire beam damage ramps up. Okay. She has more survivability. Total health increased from 250 to 275. Okay. Sure. Basically, the primary fire charge rate increasing. This doesn't do anything really against tanks, because if you're just holding on a tank, you're going to get beam close anyways. This is good against squishies. Sim has had problems with actually like taking duels and like keeping squishies off if she didn't have charge at all. So she's going to be able to better put damage pressure on a squishy target. I think it's better if Symmetra is not hard meta. So I don't think this is going to make her hard meta, but that 75 base health increase definitely does help. It's not shields, which is a good thing, but these are going to help a lot. Sim is particularly good with and against Mauga because you can TP out of cage and you can constantly apply DPS passive, and you can get a lot of value out of Shout as a Symmetra. So be on the lookout because Mauga is pretty good and he did not get nerfed. So be on the lookout for Symmetra, and also Mei and Reaper potentially. Maybe not Mei, but like Reaper, finding their way back into these Mauga comps. Now, again, Pharah, spoiler, well, it's not really spoiler, we're at the end of DPS. She also wasn't nerfed. Venture, they weren't nerfed either. I feel like they might be stronger picks with the Mauga, the Pharah in particular. And Sim and Reaper and Mei and all of them are going to have trouble dealing with her, map depending. So I would say we're probably still looking at Pharah, Mauga kind of stuff. But just, again, be on the lookout for these characters, specifically Symmetra. I think Symmetra benefits the most in our current meta from these changes. Okay. Illari. Illari's healing pylon is intended to be useful for healing her team in relatively safe positions without much focus required, which enabled her to either apply pressure with her primary fire or spot, heal, and burst from her more limited secondary fire healing beam. To encourage this, it is now improved health and healing output, but is less effective when Illari uses it to heal herself. Okay, first off, outburst damage. They don't talk about this. I actually like this. It's a non-aim. It's a big buff actually to her damage because I think outburst does help with her breakpoints. I don't actually know exactly how much damage she does, but there's a possibility you could like shoot them in the head, outburst while they're close enough, and then like hit a half charge shot and potentially kill them. Now, so I think this is good. I think outburst. It's only 25 damage at the end of the day, so that's fine. Healing pylon. It heals more. And it is less effective when targeting Illari. And it has more health, so it'll be a little harder to kill. Why? They say they want to encourage. Let me read this again. Is intended to be used. The pylon is intended to be useful for healing her team in relatively safe positions without much focus required. So they want Illari to not be on her own and do her own damage. They want her to be with her team to be able to support them with healing. So she's not going to get much value out of her pylon now. So other people, like, it's going to be more oppressive for other people to be on a flank. And then Illari, it's not going to be... She basically can't do it anymore because she's going to be receiving way less healing. I don't like encouraging a character to have to play closer to a core, to a backline only, because Illari's not gonna be able to hold any. She sucks. Like, she sucks right now. She's not, and after this, she's not gonna be able to hold any positions nearly as long, because her pylon, if she uses it for herself, it's not gonna be doing anything. If a DPS touches her, Lord knows it's gonna be doing way less. Like this, I don't know, man. I don't think this is a good change. I think this makes Illari way more boring. This makes this character like way more boring and way less useful now. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that one. This is yeah. That's kind of all I have to say. All right, Kiri, last one here. Hard knockdown stuns refer to most all of the existing knockdowns where the player is stunned and laying on the ground, such as Earth Shatter, with the exception of Honest Sleep Dart effects, which is removed. So basically, her Swift Step got nerfed, which is good, I think. It just means that Kiriko can't... Her uptime of taking duels and being aggressive is less, and I feel like that's one of the problem areas with Kiriko is of her effectiveness. So this is good. I do like the Swift Step change. They are keeping it little just for now. Protection Suzu no longer cleanses hard knockdown stuns. So this means that it doesn't cleanse the stun. So if you get knocked down on the ground, and this also, counts for like head-to-head collisions as well. if you get knocked down on the ground and you get Suzu, you're only going to get invulnerability, and like regular like anti-cleanse or whatever. You are not going to be getting any kind, you're not going to stand back up quicker, basically. The only thing that's going to do it against is Sleep Dart, because it works a little differently. It's not a set amount of time if you get hit by it, so that's kind of what I think the logic is there. This makes Reinhardt better into Kiri. This makes Mauga better. Not as much, but Slam is something to consider. I actually don't even know what is else to consider a hard knockdown stun. I think Rock, Sig Rock is a hard knockdown. You like fall on your ass when you get hit by it. So yeah, I think they don't want to make Kiriko too bad because she's a hard one to balance for lower ranks. Although I do think Suzu gets a lot more value than people give credit for. At just any level of play, but I feel like they're trying not to nerf Kiri that much because she is a very high skilled character. I think these are probably good changes. We'll have to see what this Protection Suzu change actually does. There's a possibility this does more than we think it's going to. Remember, they can also still get invulnerable when they're on the ground. It just means that they're not going to get up and get out of the way as quickly. But yeah, that's it. Overall, there's just a lot of changes to me that are kind of like, why? And I think more so, there's a lot of changes to me that are like, where are they? Where's the Mauga nerf? Maybe Pharah doesn't have to get like nerfed per se, but like, where are the changes that would affect Pharah, how good she is? Specifically Mauga, I think the Roadhog one is just not enough. I think the Sojourn one is just frustrating. The Ilyari one is also a little confusing. I think I would like to ask the dev team just kind of like there were a lot of changes in this patch, but not as many that I think are as impactful as they want them to be. So to the dev team, I just kind of like want to say like, can we focus a little more on looking at the very good stuff? I know you want to buff more than you want to nerf, but can we take a look at like what's good and perceived to be annoying or overbearing, and then do that first and, you know, work our way around that rather than trying to just take random characters who are bad for a multitude of reasons and like kind of buffing it up a little bit, right? Like just kind of buffing random things. Because once we eventually change those other characters and things that need to be fixed, then those characters may just like randomly be too good now. I'd rather we not do random things and we have a little more to it, right? A little more to what we want here. So yeah, that's about it. That's gonna be the first video here about season 11. If you want to see anything more, feel free to do any of that good YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. It does really help me out. I film this discussion live on my Twitch. Every time I go live, I try and do a discussion. That's going to be twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. And if you want to send me a hot take or an Overwatch rework idea, join my Discord. It is in the description below. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Have a good day.